Happy Memorial Day, as it looks like we're going to get college football and probably on time. And a lot's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, let's talk about some optimism, right? First, let's talk about Joel Klatt, who we'll treat like a college football insider because he kind of is, even as he's a college football analyst for Fox Sports and does some really great work with the NFL draft. And he said on his Twitter account, because that's what we're doing, we're aggregating tweets now, he's 100% certain that the 2020 season is happening. Fans will be in the stands to some capacity at some locations, at most locations, and the season will likely start on time. Now, it's one thing for him to say that. It's another thing for Texas Governor Greg Abbott to also say that. Now, Texas Longhorns are set to host South Florida on September 5th, which is the same time that Oklahoma is supposed to host Missouri State, which is on its own financial troubles. But as far as college football, over the last couple of weeks, we've felt more optimistic about not just getting football in the fall, but getting football on time, despite some rise in cases. Like New York Times had a headline earlier this weekend that showed, it was really stark front page. 100,000 folks have died as a result of the coronavirus. And this is Memorial Day, right? And we're expecting to hear about more folks who are impacted by this. And then there's this bit about the economy, which I think can't be treated like a separate issue, just like we can't treat the politics of this thing like a separate issue, which is that 40 million folks are unemployed right now in the United States, and that doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. And yet we want college football, just like we want the NFL, just like we want the NBA, just like we want all sorts of things. And I have never watched more pro wrestling than I have, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, because quite frankly, I'm so used to watching the NBA playoffs, right? I'm so used to getting set for the Summer Olympics. I'm so used to, all the normal ways in which we consume sports. And yet this morning I kept thinking to myself, I can't wait for college football to return, even if it's in some capacity. And we're not going to have a consensus on this thing. That's what's becoming clear, because as Greg Abbott is like, yeah, we're going to get college football on time, I think, and 25% capacity at most locations and restaurants and whatnot in the state of Texas is they're in the phase 2 of what they're doing. Texas is also given some guidelines to Youth Sports League about how they can go about business. Oklahoma has basically been doing youth sports for the past 2 weeks, beginning 2 Fridays ago, right? So reopen, and I tell you, in Jinx, Oklahoma, which is down the street from here, there were 98 youth baseball teams descending on the complex there to play baseball, right? With all sorts of guidelines, things like, hey, we're going to space the kids out. We don't really want them to interact with each other, and except when they have to. Parents, we're going to ask you to stay in cars. These entry fees, they were basically writing checks to the coach. The coach wrote one big check to the facilities, and, there's all sorts of ways to go about this thing, and we're seeing universities across the country, if they haven't already gone to digital ticket pricing, they're going to digital ticket pricing and distribution. They're also coming up with ways for which you can get your commemorative ticket if you want one of those things. And it's really going to be an interesting look at how we're able to pull this off, because I don't think we're going to get full capacity crowds for college football this season. However, seeing things like 40%, 50% seems to be on the table. And that's not necessarily whether or not I agree with it, doesn't matter. It's not about having an agenda. It's about being safe with all this stuff. And yet, yes, I want college football like you want college football. This is a college football channel. I love college football. But I also want everybody to be safe. And seeing how some teams are going to interact with their players and try to get this thing going, I'm interested, right? So, if you live in the state, like in Oklahoma, you're probably going to be asked to come in and quarantine for a couple of weeks and then start slowly phasing into your training. And the same thing with kids that are coming from out of state in a few weeks. And then by mid-July, I expect to hear about practice. Shells and stuff. We're also talking about some things like NFL OTA style of practices and whatever works, I guess. But I'm also really cagey about this thing. And if you're not really cagey about this thing, okay, cool. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the folks like myself who still don't feel great about where we are. And yet, there's nothing to do to stop it except to say, cool, college football, and try to be a glass half full type dude with this. But it's really difficult because, yo, man, I got here by training for the rainy days, right? Not because I expected it to be days to be shiny all the time. And I get some of the folks who are pro-business who are also going, hey, we can't let the cure be worse than the disease. And yet I'm saying, shouldn't we be trying to save life and all of that? And yet all of the folks that have the power in this thing, right? College football coaches, athletic directors, presidents, television executives want football. So it looks like we're going to get football. How we get that football is going to be really interesting as well, because are people going to be more likely to stay at home? I don't think so in the South. I mean, I think in the heartland, the South, and the Midwest, you're going to see more folks go to games. One, because they don't feel as impacted as, say, New York or California. But two, because they love football in a way that so many folks don't. Like the University of Michigan talking about, we're not going to have football if we have kids on the campus. Okay, but like if you don't have football in Michigan, you're probably going to be left out of a conversation that is going to revolve around a bunch of Power 5 schools that are going to play football, right? I mean, it would suck if you go to the University of Michigan, but I could also see like mass exodus and transfer portal situations if that were the thing that happened. So I'm really interested to see what goes on up there and if they'll just stick to that. Plus, University of Michigan makes a lot of money off of tuition and room and board. So I'd be interested to see how they expect to come out of this thing financially, which is something else entirely, right? Because everybody's in a hole financially across the board. So really it's about mitigating damage at this point and just trying to somehow get back to good if you can. Now, I also get that nobody wants the spring football season as much as I think that would be fun, because you don't want to go up against the NFL. You don't want to go up against the NFL scouting combine, NFL draft. And you sure as hell want Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence to play a full season of football before you got to let them go to the NFL. So anything that impedes that, you're probably going to be up against. Plus, you have some really big games that can pull a large television audience set for September, right? Alabama, Georgia, it's going to be a very closely watched game. Texas, LSU, the same thing. Oklahoma, Tennessee is also in there. Notre Dame, Arkansas is going to pull because Arkansas got a tremendous fan base. And so does Notre Dame with the Subway alumni, which is really a sub situation when Notre Dame alums are the Doms. And I don't understand why you would be a Subway alum of Notre Dame. It just doesn't seem like it has any benefits unless you just like taking abuse. And if you like taking abuse, fine. But yeah, college football. I'm sure each day that we're going to get it back. Just not so sure that we're going to be able to pull it off. I hope we can. I really want us to pull that thing off. But again, being risk averse, yeah, that's how I got here. So, all right, deuces.